All right, 131 folks. Let's pick up on Unit 2, Chapter 4. Um, I got to tell you, I'm passionate about history. Somebody sent me an email and said, Mr. Whitley, you seem to get a little excited. You seem to get a little agitated. Can you slow down just a little bit? Can you be a little bit less passionate? And it's like, I got to tell you, folks, this is me at my slowest. Were we actually in class, I would be ranting. I would be walking around. I would be preaching the gospel at this particular point because I think history is exciting. I think it's important. I think it has everything to do with what we're going through now. This particular unit is pretty interesting. This particular chapter is pretty interesting because it talks about the difference in colonies, whether you're a British colony, whether you're a French colony, whether you are a Spanish colony. We know when the Spanish came in, excuse me, they came in as soldiers. They came in as conquistadors, right? They came in as conquerors. And then once they had conquered, once they had taken over, once they had subjugated, and yeah, I know it's a terrible word, they lived with, but no, they subjugated the people, then many of the new landowners, many of the new royalty that were given property came out and formed their own haciendas. They bought their family with them, but for the most part, they came in, they got what they wanted in the way of money, and then they left. All right, they didn't plan on staying long term. It's only those second and third generation Spanish that decide to stay long term here. It's a different type of settling. The French come in and they have a whole different pattern. They're going to send in company men, right? They're going to send in company men who are going to learn the language. They're going to learn the customs. They're going to come in ones and twos. They're not going to bring their family. They're not going to bring the soldiers. They're not going to bring the army. What they will do is they will go in and visit. They will go in and live amongst the Native Americans, learning their culture. They will set up trade agreements. Then they will set up trading fortresses. They will set up trading posts. And the idea is to supply the raw materials, to supply the skins, to supply the leather, to supply the things that are a product of this wild, primitive environment. Provide them to the French trading companies. And they're going to do this on a small basis by working with the Native Americans, as opposed to the British, who are going to come in with a mix of soldiers and settlers. And that's where it's different, soldiers and settlers. And they're going to move in and live with, cooperate with, and then eventually displace the Native Americans. They're going to slowly but surely strip them of their land, their rights, and push them off and push them west, and the government will support this. And so there's different ways of settling, and that's what you have to realize, is the different ways of settling, but also different ways of administering. The French Empire and their environs, we're still looking at mercantilism, like we mentioned before. We're still looking at the idea of we settle small colonies in order to feed the mother country. Well, the French are doing this with business. When the British reach out this way, what they're going to find is they're not going to find gold. They're not going to find silver here. What they are going to find is a place to ship the people that not necessarily do they want them. They're going to find a place to ship the excess. They're going to be able to make some money, but for the most part, the British are going to rule from a distance. Why? Because we're largely not profitable. Okay, we're largely not profitable. So they're going to rule from a distance. They're going to be more or less vacant parents. All right, they will run us. They will run the colonies. They will do it from a distance. And what will happen is there's going to be some shifts. And the shifts are going to be about this expansion of empires, this increasing footprint, this increasing trade. And what will happen is this increasing trade and these increasing footprints will mean that we're going to see a conflict between these two great empires. Not that they're friends anyway. Okay, they've been fighting back and forth for more than 100 years. We had the 100 Years' War, right? Even though you have British monarchs who own land in France, we're going to see a struggle between them because, excuse me, the idea is to see who has the biggest, baddest, most profitable empire. And what we're going to look at is a series of wars in Europe that are going to spread here, that are going to spread to the Americas. And this spread to the Americas is going to be what we call here the French Indian War. But the French Indian War is just one of several wars that involve France and involve Spain. But here it's the French Indian War. In Europe, it's going to go by a different name, okay? In Europe, it's not going to be just the French and the Indians. It's going to involve the French, it's going to involve the British, it's going to involve several surrounding countries that are in competition for the resources at this particular point, and it will spill over here. It will spill over here because they both have surrounding colonies. It's going to be the French Indian War because the French are going to reach out to the Native American allies and they're going to say, hey, listen, yo, Native Americans, if you guys will come and fight alongside of us, we will give you the land back that the British took. We will go ahead and drive them off of your land, and we will go ahead and give it back to you. This promise is going to put the French in league with the Native Americans, and it's also going to see the introduction of a new guy, and the new guy is going to be a guy named Washington. Um, Washington is going to be an unlikely leader. Yes, George. And what will happen is we're going to go ahead and see the introduction of Washington. We're going to see the introduction of fights between the British and the French. And what will happen is the British are going to win. The British and their allies are going to win. That's going to result in a peace treaty. This peace treaty is going to give the British most of what the French have. All right, most of what the French have here in land holdings um, from the Appalachians on east. It's going to give them territory up in Canada. It's going to result in a lot of trade in land. And what happens is this: it's a hugely expensive war. But during this war, the British are going to go, hey, while we were in America, okay, yeah, they're backwards, they're hillbillies, they're hicks and everything, but turns out, excuse me, they've got manufacturing, they've got money, that it's a going enterprise, and how come we're not taxing them? How come we're not running them? And so what they're going to do is they're going to reach out to the American economy by creating tax laws that the British, for the most part, are already paying, that the British citizens are already paying. And so what they're going to do is they're going to reach out to tax the American colonies, and the American colonies are not going to like it. Okay, they're not going to like it. There's something called salutary neglect, and it's the idea that the British let us be for so long. The British let us make our rules for so long. The British let us run wild and be largely ungoverned for so long, and now they're going to come down on us and set these rules. Imagine from the time that you're 10 to the time you're 17, your parents don't tell you what to do. But now that you're 17, they're going to go ahead and say, hey, here's the ground rules. Well, it's no miracle. It's no big deal. It's not a surprise that America takes umbrage. We start to say, yo, wait a second, we are a free country. Well, no, you're not. You're not a free country. You're an English colony. And you're going to pay for the right to be protected by us. You're going to pay just like all the other British citizens pay, that you're going to do your part and you're going to take part, excuse me, and you're going to help with this tax burden. And so what's going to happen is they're going to create a series of laws, a series of taxes, a series of rules. And because Americans won't listen, they're going to get decidedly more and more harsh. And as they get more and more harsh, we're going to take it and chafe at these restraints more and more and more. And this chafing at the restraints is going to be what becomes the American Revolution. And this swift change in economic status, this swift change in rule after the French-American War is really what's going to trigger this. Think about the fact that right now we're saying, oh, listen, I am so tired of wearing a mask. I think I want to take off my mask and go run wild and stand within 5.5 feet of somebody, right? I want to go to somebody's house and pretend I know them, whether I do or not, because I am just so tired, because I want things to be back the way they were. This is the American Revolution, all right? So go ahead and read up on this, because this is a slow build until it's a raging inferno. All right, folks, I'll see you in Unit 3.